The void between stars held secrets, Commander Sarah Chen knew, but she never expected to stumble upon one quite like this. The bridge of the ESS Horizon hummed with the quiet efficiency of a well-trained crew, yet something felt different about tonight's patrol along the outer colony's trade routes. "Commander, I'm picking up an unusual signal," Lieutenant Park announced from his communications station, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "It's not matching any known Earth or colonial frequencies." Sarah straightened in her command chair, brushing aside a stray lock of dark hair. After 15 years in Earth's space service, she'd learned to trust her instincts. Analysis. It's weak, degrading, but it's definitely artificial. The pattern suggests a distress beacon, but the encoding is like nothing in our database. The bridge fell silent save for the steady pulse of monitoring equipment. Sarah studied the main viewport, where stars stretched endlessly before them. Out here, 20 light-years from Earth, help was a luxury few could count on. "Plot an intercept course," she ordered, "but maintain passive scanning only. I don't want to advertise our presence until we know what we're dealing with." The Horizon altered course smoothly, its fusion drives barely registering a change. Sarah used the time to study the sensor data streaming across her command interface. The signal's complexity suggested advanced technology, yet its deteriorating state hinted at damage or lack of maintenance. 3 hours later, they found its source. "My God," whispered Commander Chen as the ship's cameras focused on the vessel drifting in the darkness. The alien craft was massive, easily 3 times the size of the Horizon, but its elegant lines were marred by obvious battle damage. Scorch marks scarred its silver-blue hull, and one entire section appeared to have been torn open to space. "Life signs?" Sarah asked, her throat tight. Multiple readings, confirmed Dr. Emily Rodriguez from the science station, but their weak and environmental systems appeared to be failing throughout the vessel. "Whatever happened here, Commander, those people don't have much time." Sarah felt the weight of command settle heavily on her shoulders. First contact protocols were clear: maintain distance, attempt communication, and wait for instructions from Earth Command. But the nearest quantum relay was 3 days away, and those life signs were fading. Medical, prepare for possible multiple species casualties. Engineering, I want a boarding plan in 5 minutes. Security, full team, non-lethal loadout. She stood, her decision made. "We're going in." The boarding party assembled in the Horizon's main airlock, their powered armor gleaming under the emergency lights. Sarah checked her suit's seals one final time, knowing that what they were about to do went against every regulation in the book. But she hadn't joined the space service to watch people die. "Remember," she addressed her team, "we don't know what we're walking into. Stay alert, stay together, and remember your training. These people need our help, but that doesn't mean they're not dangerous." The connection tube extended between the ships with a soft thud, and Sarah led her team across. The alien vessel's emergency lighting cast eerie blue shadows through the corridors, and their boots echoed against deck plates made of some unknown material that seemed to absorb sound. They found the first survivors in what appeared to be a cargo hold converted into makeshift living quarters. Dozens of beings huddled in small groups, representing at least 5 distinct species. Some appeared nearly human, while others were clearly products of very different evolutionary paths. All showed signs of malnutrition and trauma. A tall figure stepped forward from the group. Its skin was a pale lavender, with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed softly in the dim light. Despite its alien appearance, Sarah could read the universal language of desperation in its stance. "I am Zorak," it spoke in heavily accented English, much to Sarah's surprise. "We are refugees, fleeing the hegemony. Please, help us." Sarah removed her helmet, a gesture of trust that made her security chief wince. "I'm Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Space Service. We're here to help, but I need to understand what we're dealing with. What's the hegemony, and why are they after you?" Zorak's bioluminescent patterns flickered rapidly. The hegemony claims to bring order to the galaxy, but they bring only oppression. They demand absolute conformity, absolute obedience. Those who resist, disappear. We chose to flee rather than submit. A child-sized being with iridescent scales crept closer to Zorak, clearly seeking comfort. Sarah's heart clenched at the sight. Whatever political complications this rescue might cause, she knew she'd made the right choice. Dr. Rodriguez, begin triage. Lieutenant Park, see what you can do about their life support systems. We need to stabilize this situation before we can figure out our next move. As her crew sprang into action, Sarah noticed something odd about the refugee ship's technology. Despite the damage, much of it appeared far more advanced than anything Earth had developed. Yet there was something jury-rigged about the systems, as if they'd been adapted in a hurry. Your ship, she said to Zorak. It's not originally yours, is it? The alien's patterns dimmed slightly. We acquired it during our escape. The hegemony would say we stole it. We would say we claimed our freedom. Sarah nodded slowly, understanding the implications. These weren't just refugees, they were revolutionaries. And by helping them, she had just involved Earth in a conflict it didn't even know existed. Hours passed as the Horizon's crew worked to stabilize the refugee vessel and treat the wounded. Sarah had just finished coordinating with her engineering team when the tactical officer's voice cut through the comm channel. Commander, multiple contacts just dropped out of FTL at the edge of our sensor range. Energy signatures match the weapons damage on the refugee vessel. Sarah's blood ran cold. The hegemony had found them. Looking at the frightened faces around her, Sarah knew she couldn't abandon these people, but neither could she risk open warfare with an unknown power. She had minutes at most to find a third option. Zorak, she called out, I need to know everything you can tell me about hegemony's ships. Weaknesses, blind spots, anything. We're about to find out if humanity's reputation for creative problem-solving is deserved. As Zorak began to speak, Sarah's mind was already racing through possibilities. Whatever happened next would change the course of human history. She just hoped she could keep it from becoming a tragedy. The pursuing ships grew larger on the horizon's displays, their angular forms a stark contrast to the flowing lines of the refugee vessel. Sarah had minutes to decide the fate of not just these refugees, but potentially humanity's first major interaction with galactic civilization. She keyed her comm. All hands, battle stations. But remember, today we're not here to fight. We're here to prove that humanity stands for something more than just survival. We're here to show the galaxy what we're really made of. The refugee ship's systems hummed to life under her crew's repairs, and Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The real test of humanity's place in the galaxy was about to begin. The hegemony warships carved through space like predatory birds, their hulls gleaming with a metallic sheen that seemed to absorb starlight. Commander Sarah Chen watched them approach on the horizon's main display, her mind racing through tactical scenarios. What's their weapons range? She asked, keeping her voice steady despite the tension coiling in her chest. Based on the damage patterns on the refugee vessel, I estimate their energy weapons are effective at 300,000 kilometers, Lieutenant Park reported. We're at 450,000 and closing. Sarah turned to Zorak, who stood beside her command chair, the alien's bioluminescent patterns pulsing with anxiety. You said their ships have a blind spot. Yes, Zorak's patterns flickered rapidly. Their sensor arrays cannot penetrate their own drive wake. It's a design flaw they've never corrected because no species has been foolish enough to fly through such turbulence. A smile tugged at Sarah's lips. Foolish or creative. Lieutenant Rodriguez, plot a course that will take us through their drive wake. Mr. Park, begin emergency power transfer to our structural integrity fields. Her crew exchanged glances but moved to comply. They'd served together long enough to trust their commander's unconventional thinking. Commander, Zorak's translator struggled to convey their concern. The gravitational shear in a drive wake could tear your ship apart. Could, Sarah agreed, but it won't. Humanity had to master gravitational manipulation just to reach the stars. Our ships are built to handle forces that would crush most vessels. She keyed her ship-wide comm. All hands, secure for extreme maneuvering. Medical, prepare for potential casualties. The hegemony ships entered weapons range, their first salvos of energy weapons spitting the darkness. The Horizon's evasive maneuvers were already in motion, the ship dancing between the deadly beams with precision that surprised even Zorak. Open a channel, Sarah ordered. All frequencies. When the comm officer nodded, she spoke clearly and firmly. This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Space Service vessel Horizon. We have responded to a distress call and are rendering humanitarian assistance as required by interstellar law. Any aggressive action against this vessel will be considered an act of war against Earth. The response came quickly, a harsh voice speaking perfect English. Earth vessel, you are harboring fugitives from hegemony justice. Stand down and prepare to be boarded, or be destroyed with them. Sarah cut the channel. They're not interested in talking. Helm, execute attack pattern Chen 7. The Horizon surged forward, its fusion drives pushing to maximum thrust. The maneuver looked like a suicide run straight at the largest hegemony vessel, causing them to concentrate their fire on the human ship's apparent trajectory. Structural integrity fields at maximum, engineering reported. Hull stress approaching red line. Steady, Sarah commanded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. Wait for it. At the last possible moment, the Horizon cut its main drives and fired its maneuvering thrusters in a complex sequence. The ship spun on its axis while maintaining its forward momentum, slipping into the massive drive wake of the hegemony flagship like a leaf caught in a tornado. Alarms blared as the ship shuddered violently. Hull stress critical. Compensating. Reroute power from weapons to structural integrity, Sarah ordered. We won't need them where we're going. The Horizon rode the gravitational currents of the drive wake, using the violent forces to mask their presence while simultaneously slingshotting them past the hegemony formation. The refugee ship, guided by a skeleton crew from the Horizon, followed a more conventional escape vector, drawing the enemy's attention. They're pursuing the refugee ship, Tactical reported, firing solutions locked on their engines. Perfect. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. Deploy the mines. Earlier, while transferring supplies to the refugee ship, the Horizon had also scattered a field of miniature quantum mines, a new Earth technology that had never been used in actual combat. As the hegemony ships pursued their apparent prey, they sailed right into the trap. The mines detonated in sequence, their explosions tiny but precisely calculated. Instead of trying to breach the hegemony ship's powerful shields, they created a cascade of quantum disruptions in their drive systems. Multiple drive failures detected in the hegemony fleet, Tactical announced with barely contained excitement. They're dropping out of pursuit. The refugee ship made its break for freedom, accelerating away from the disabled hegemony vessels. The Horizon emerged from the drive wake, its hull scorched but intact, moving to escort position. Get me a damage report, Sarah ordered, and begin calculations for a synchronized FTL jump. We need to be gone before they can effect repairs. As her crew worked to carry out her orders, Sarah noticed Zorak staring at her with an unreadable expression. The alien's patterns had shifted to colors she hadn't seen before. You risked everything, Zorak said quietly. Your ship, your crew, perhaps even your world's safety. Why? Sarah met their gaze steadily. Because it was right. And because humanity learned long ago that sometimes you have to stand up to bullies, no matter how big they are. The hegemony will not forget this, Zorak warned. They will come looking for revenge. Let them come, Sarah replied, her voice hard. They'll find that humanity isn't as primitive as they might think, and they'll learn that we don't take kindly to those who prey on the helpless. The next hours were a blur of activity as both ships prepared for their escape jump. Sarah coordinated with her engineers to modify the refugee ship's FTL drive to match the Horizon's jump signature, allowing them to travel together through hyperspace. As they made final preparations, Sarah received a priority message from her second-in-command. "Commander, we've analyzed some of the data we collected from the hegemony ships. There's something you need to see." The information scrolling across her display made her breath catch. The hegemony wasn't just an oppressive empire. They were systematically harvesting technology and resources from countless civilizations, using their policy of conformity as an excuse to strip entire worlds of their unique developments. "They're parasites," she murmured, understanding dawning. "They maintain their technological advantage by stealing innovations from others, then crushing any civilization that might challenge them." Zorok moved closer, their patterns reflecting a mix of sadness and anger. "Now you understand why we fled, why we have to find help outside their sphere of influence. Your people, you're different. You create, you innovate, you challenge the impossible. The hegemony fears species like yours." Sarah stood, her decision made. "Then maybe it's time they learned to fear us," she keyed her calm. "All hands, prepare for FTL jump. We're taking our friends home, and then we're going to have a very interesting conversation with Earth Command about humanity's role in galactic politics." The stars stretched into lines of light as both ships made the jump to safety. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had lived in isolation, believing they were alone in their corner of space. Now they had proof not only of advanced alien civilizations, but of systematic oppression on a galactic scale. The real question was, what would Earth do with this information? As she watched the sensor readings confirm their successful escape, Sarah had a feeling she knew the answer. Humanity had never been good at standing idle while others suffered. The game was about to change, and the hegemony had no idea what they'd awakened. The quantum communication chamber aboard the Horizon hummed with energy as Sarah faced the holographic projections of Earth's Space Service Command. 5 stern faces stared back at her, their expressions ranging from concern to barely concealed anger. "Let me be clear, Commander Chen," Admiral Harrison's hologram spoke, his silver hair gleaming in the artificial light. "You engaged an unknown alien force, violated first contact protocols, and potentially dragged Earth into an interstellar conflict. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't strip you of your command right now." Sarah stood straight, her hands clasped behind her back. "With respect, Admiral, I'd like to show you something first." She nodded to Lieutenant Park, who transmitted the data they gathered. "This is what the hegemony has been doing across hundreds of star systems." The holograms flickered as the admirals reviewed the information. Sarah watched their expressions shift from skepticism to horror as they saw the evidence of systematic oppression, technological theft, and cultural destruction. "My God," whispered Admiral Chen, no relation but one of Sarah's longtime supporters. "They're not just conquering, they're consuming entire civilizations." "Exactly," Sarah pressed her advantage. "And now they know about Earth. Whether we like it or not, we're already involved. The question is, do we wait for them to come to us, or do we take action now?" The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Sarah could almost see the wheels turning in their minds, calculating risks and possibilities. "Tell us about these refugees," Admiral Harrison finally said, his tone softer. "What can they offer us?" Sarah gestured, and Zarok stepped into the projection field. The admirals stared at the alien's appearance, their eyes fixed on the flowing patterns of bioluminescence. "Honorable leaders of Earth," Zarok began, their translator rendering their musical language into clear English, "My people are the Lumini. We were once renowned for our biotechnology and environmental engineering. The hegemony stripped our worlds of their achievements, forced our people into service, and erased our culture from galactic records." "And you're not alone," Sarah added. "The refugee ship carries representatives from 4 other species, each with their own technological specialties that the hegemony has appropriated. Together, They represent a wealth of knowledge that could advance Earth's development by centuries. Admiral Chen leaned forward, and in exchange for sanctuary, we offer partnership. Zorak's patterns shifted to deep blues and greens. Your Commander Chen has shown us that humanity possesses something rare in our galaxy, the courage to stand against injustice, combined with the creativity to succeed where others have failed. We don't seek mere shelter. We seek allies in reclaiming our stolen heritage. The admirals exchanged glances. Admiral Harrison spoke first. Commander Chen, secure your refugees at the Jupiter station. Full quarantine protocols, but treat them as honored guests. We'll need time to verify this information and consult with the Earth Council. Sarah nodded, hiding her relief. It wasn't a full victory, but it was a start. After the transmission ended, Sarah found herself in the Horizon's observation lounge, watching Jupiter's massive form grow larger in the viewport. Zorak joined her, their reflection overlapping with hers in the transparent aluminum window. Your leaders are cautious, Zorak observed. They have to be. They're responsible for protecting 8 billion lives. Sarah turned to face them, but they're not blind or cowardly. Once they verify everything we've shown them, they'll act. And if they choose not to? Sarah's expression hardened. Then we'll find another way. Humanity has a long history of individuals standing up for what's right, even when their governments won't. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent call from the bridge. Commander, we're picking up unusual energy signatures near Ganymede. Multiple vessels just dropped out of FTL. Configurations match hegemony design. Sarah was moving before the message finished. Sound General Quarters. All hands to battle stations. Get me a secure channel to command. But as she rushed to the bridge, a new alert blared through the ship. Unknown energy surge detected. It's, Commander, something's happening to Ganymede's orbital defense platforms. The main view screen showed the massive defense satellites that protected Jupiter's largest moon suddenly powering down, their weapons systems going dark one by one. It's a virus. Zorak's patterns flashed with recognition. The hegemony doesn't just steal technology, they plant backdoors in everything they touch. If your systems have any components derived from salvaged alien tech, we do, Sarah confirmed grimly. We've been reverse engineering alien artifacts for decades, never knowing where they really came from. She keyed the ship-wide comm. All hands, initiate clean slate protocols. Shut down all non-essential systems and switch to isolated backups. The Horizon's lights dimmed as systems powered down, but Sarah knew it was already too late for the orbital platforms. The hegemony had just neutralized one of Earth's strongest defensive positions without firing a shot. Get me Earth Command, she ordered, her voice tight with controlled urgency, and begin evacuation procedures for the civilian population on Ganymede. The hegemony isn't here to talk, they're here to make an example of us. As her crew rushed to comply, Sarah caught Zorak's eye. The alien's patterns had shifted to colors she'd never seen before, colors that somehow conveyed both dread and determination. You were right, Zorak said softly. The game has changed, but perhaps not in the way the hegemony expects. Sarah nodded grimly. They think they're here to teach humanity a lesson about interfering in their affairs. Instead, they're about to learn why you don't back humans into a corner. The first shots of what would become known as the Liberation War were moments away. But as Sarah watched the hegemony ships approach, she felt a strange calm settle over her. This wasn't just about Earth anymore. This was about standing up for every species that had suffered under the hegemony's boot. And humanity was done playing by their rules. The hegemony fleet emerged from their FTL jumps like sharks cutting through dark water, their angular ships forming an attack pattern that Sarah recognized from the refugee vessel's data. 12 capital ships, each nearly 3 times the size of the Horizon, supported by smaller craft that moved with mechanical precision. Status of Ganymede evacuation, Sarah demanded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. Civilian transports are launching, but we need at least 30 minutes to clear the major habitation domes, Lieutenant Park reported, his fingers dancing across his console. The mining colonies on the far side are reporting successful emergency lockdown. Sarah nodded grimly. That's time we'll have to buy them. What's still working after their cyber attack? The good news. Our nuclear deterrent platforms are entirely mechanical, old tech the virus couldn't touch. Bad news? Everything else with advanced targeting systems is compromised. A smile tugged at Sarah's lips. Sometimes the old ways are best. Get me a channel to all Earth forces in the system. As her communications officer worked, Sarah turned to Zorak. Your people's biotechnology, how good is it at adapting to radiation? Zorak's patterns shifted to a curious purple. We evolved on a world bathed in radioactive storms. Our shielding technology is specifically designed to... Their patterns brightened with understanding. You're thinking of using the radiation belts. Jupiter's magnetosphere is one of the most hostile radiation environments in the solar system, Sarah confirmed. Earth ships are heavily shielded against it, our hegemony vessels. No, Zorak's patterns pulsed with excitement. They rely on energy shields that would be quickly overwhelmed by such intense particle radiation. The command channel crackled to life. Sarah straightened, addressing the assembled Earth forces. All vessels, this is Commander Chen. The hegemony thinks they've crippled us by attacking our high-tech defenses. They're about to learn that humanity doesn't rely on just one way of fighting. She laid out her plan quickly, watching as understanding spread across the faces of her fellow commanders. It was audacious, possibly suicidal, but it played to humanity's strengths, improvisation, and using the environment to their advantage. Helm, plot a course for the Io Flux 2, she ordered. Engineering, divert all power to structural integrity and radiation shielding. We're going to give them a lesson in local astronomy. The horizon accelerated toward Jupiter's innermost Galilean moon, followed by the remaining Earth vessels. The hegemony fleet moved to pursue, exactly as Sarah had hoped. They're launching fighters, Tactical reported. Multiple missile locks detected. Let them come, Sarah's voice was steel. Execute Operation Lighthouse. Across the Jupiter system, the supposedly disabled defense platforms suddenly blazed to life, not with their advanced targeting systems, but with simple radar-guided nuclear warheads that had been standard equipment since the 20th century. The hegemony's virus had never touched these backup systems because they were too primitive to hack. The space between the fleets erupted in nuclear fire. The hegemony ship's energy shields flared brilliant purple as they absorbed the blast wave, but that was just the beginning. All ships, dive into the flux tube, now. The Earth fleet plunged into the intense magnetic field connection between Jupiter and Io, where charged particles accelerated to near-light speed created one of the solar system's most dangerous radiation zones. The hegemony fleet followed, their commanders probably believing they had the Earth ships trapped. Radiation levels rising, engineering reported. Shield stress at 80% and climbing. Hold course, Sarah commanded. Wait for my mark. The hegemony ships pressed their attack, their superior numbers and technology giving them confidence. But as they penetrated deeper into the flux tube, their energy shields began to flicker and fail under the intense radiation. Their shields are dropping, Tactical announced. They're trying to pull back. Not this time, Sarah's eyes narrowed. All ships, execute Maneuver Delta. Show them why we call this the slingshot. The Earth fleet had been practicing this maneuver for years, using Jupiter's intense magnetic field to accelerate their ships to incredible speeds while their heavy radiation shielding protected them. Now, they pulled a tight turn through the flux tube that sent them hurtling back toward the hegemony fleet at a significant fraction of light speed. The enemy commanders realized their mistake too late. With their energy shields failing under the radiation assault, they had no defense against the kinetic energy weapons the Earth ships now launched. simple tungsten rods that at these velocities hit with the force of nuclear weapons. Multiple direct hits. Tactical's voice rose with excitement. 3 enemy capital ships breaking apart. 4, 5. The remaining hegemony vessels attempted to retreat, but the radiation damage to their systems made their movements sluggish and uncoordinated. The Earth fleet pressed their advantage, launching salvos of conventional missiles at the now vulnerable ships. Commander, Zorak's patterns had shifted to colors Sara had never seen before. They're sending a distress signal to their nearest battle fleet. But something's wrong. The signal isn't getting through. Sara allowed herself a small smile. The radiation, it's disrupting their quantum communications. By the time they get a message out, this battle will be long over. The next hour was a blur of tactical maneuvers and precision strikes. When it was done, the mighty hegemony fleet was reduced to drifting wreckage, while the Earth ships, though battered, remained operational. Civilian evacuation complete, Lieutenant Park reported. All habitation domes secured. We did it, Commander. But Sara's expression remained grim. We won the battle, Lieutenant, but the war, that's just beginning. She turned to Zorak. You said the hegemony fears species like us, ones who innovate, who find new solutions. Now they know why. Zorak's patterns rippled thoughtfully. This victory will change everything. Other species will hear of it. Hope will spread. Hope isn't enough, Sara replied, watching the cleanup operations begin on her tactical display. We need to give them something more. A vision of a galaxy where every species is free to develop in their own way, where diversity is strength, not weakness. She keyed her comm to contact Earth Command. The admirals needed to understand. This wasn't just about defending Earth anymore. They had the opportunity, perhaps even the obligation, to light a spark that could free countless civilizations. The real question was, were they ready for that responsibility? News of the Battle of Ganymede spread through the galaxy like wildfire, transmitted through hidden channels and whispered in the shadows of 1,000 worlds. A primitive species had not only defied the hegemony, but had decisively defeated one of their battle fleets. The impossible had happened, and the galaxy's balance of power would never be the same. Commander Sara Chen stood in the newly established Interspecies Command Center on Luna, Earth's moon, watching holographic representations of reports flooding in from across known space. Each glowing point represented a potential ally, a species or faction reaching out to Earth through carefully hidden quantum channels that Zorak's people had helped establish. 17 more resistance cells have made contact in the past hour, Admiral Harrison reported, his hologram appearing beside her. The weeks since Ganymede had aged him, but there was new fire in his eyes. Your victory did more than bloody the hegemony's nose, Commander. You gave the galaxy something it hasn't had in centuries, hope. Hope is dangerous, Sara replied, studying a tactical overlay of known hegemony fleet movements. The hegemony will strike back harder now, try to make an example of us. Let them try. The new voice belonged to Dr. Yuki Tanaka, head of Earth's Technology Integration Program. She approached with Zorak and a delegation of refugee scientists, their combined work already revolutionizing Earth's defensive capabilities. We've learned more in 3 weeks of cooperation than we did in 50 years of reverse engineering alien artifacts. Zorak's patterns shifted to a deep blue of satisfaction, and we have learned that humanity's greatest strength isn't your technology or your resources, it's your inability to accept limitations. The main display suddenly flashed red, and a junior officer rushed forward. Commander. Priority signal from the Proxima Centauri colony. Multiple hegemony signatures detected approaching the system. Sara's jaw tightened. Proxima was humanity's first extrasolar colony, home to 3 million people. How many ships? 30 capital ships, Commander. At least twice that many support vessels. The room fell silent. It was a force that dwarfed the fleet they faced at Ganymede. They mean to break us, Admiral Harrison said quietly. Show the galaxy what happens to those who resist. Sarah studied the tactical display, her mind racing. No, she said finally, they mean to trap us. This force is meant to draw our fleet to Proxima's defense, leaving Earth vulnerable to their real attack. She turned to Zorak. How will the hegemony typically handle a situation like this? Divide and conquer. Zorak's patterns pulsed with recognition. Force their opponent to split their forces, then overwhelm each group separately. Exactly, but we're not going to play by their rules. Sarah stepped forward, addressing the assembled commanders. The hegemony thinks in terms of fleet actions, of overwhelming force. But while they were building bigger ships, humanity was learning to fight smarter. She waved her hand, and the tactical display zoomed out to show the entire solar system. We've spent centuries preparing to defend our home. Now it's time to show them everything we can do. Over the next hours, Sarah laid out a plan that made even the most seasoned commanders pause. It was audacious, arguably insane, but it played to humanity's strengths while exploiting the hegemony's rigid tactical doctrine. The refugee scientists have confirmed what we suspected, Sarah explained. The hegemony's ships rely heavily on quantum communications for coordination. Their entire command structure depends on instant communication between vessels. Dr. Tanaka stepped forward. Using combined human and Lumini technology, we've developed a way to disrupt those communications. Not just jam them, make them unreliable. And a fleet that size, Sarah continued, with no effective communication, they'll be forced to fall back on preset protocols we now understand thanks to our allies. The plan took shape. A complex dance of fleet movements, electronic warfare, and carefully planned ambushes. Earth would appear to take the bait, sending ships to Proxima, while seemingly leaving the home system vulnerable. But throughout the solar system, weapons platforms and automated drones were being repositioned, and civilian ships were being fitted with electronic warfare packages. The hegemony thinks they understand us now, Sarah addressed the assembled commanders. They think they can predict how we'll react. But they've forgotten something crucial about humanity. We never fight the same way twice. As the preparations continued, Sarah found a quiet moment with Zorak in the observation dome, looking up at the Earth hanging beautiful and vulnerable in the black sky. Your people are remarkable, Zorak said softly. When we first fled to your space, we hoped only for sanctuary. Instead, you've given the galaxy something far more precious. What's that? A new way of thinking. The hegemony rose to power because they convinced everyone that resistance was futile, that conformity was the only path to survival. But humans, their patterns shifted to colors that seemed to express both awe and amusement. Humans don't believe in impossible odds. Sarah smiled slightly. We're too stubborn for our own good sometimes. Perhaps that stubbornness is exactly what the galaxy needs. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent alert. The hegemony fleet had arrived at Proxima Centauri, right on schedule. The first phase of their attack had begun. Here we go, Sarah murmured, straightening her uniform. Time to show them why you don't threaten a species that named their first interstellar colony ship against all odds. As she walked back to the command center, Sarah felt the weight of history on her shoulders. The next few days would determine not just humanity's fate, but potentially the future of every species that had suffered under the hegemony's rule. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their absolute refusal to accept tyranny. The battle for humanity's future began not with a thunderous exchange of weapons, but with silence. Complete, absolute silence. The massive hegemony fleet approaching Proxima Centauri suddenly found their quantum communications grid saturated with contradictory signals. Commands became garbled, coordination impossible. Individual ship commanders, trained to rely on central control, hesitated as their protocols failed them. Sarah Chen watched from the bridge of the horizon, now upgraded with combined human Lumini technology. Status of Operation Babel. Communication disruption at 98% effectiveness, Lieutenant Park reported, a fierce grin on his face. Their fleets breaking into isolated groups, exactly as predicted. The hegemony's mighty armada, designed to function as a single coordinated unit, was fragmenting into confused clusters. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. Launch the drones. Across the Proxima Centauri system, thousands of automated craft emerged from hiding places in asteroid fields and orbital debris. They were simple machines by hegemony standards, but they carried one crucial weapon: truth. Powerful transmitters began broadcasting to every ship in the hegemony fleet, not military communications, but stories. Stories of resistance, of freedom, of hope. Stories translated into every language of every species forced to serve in the hegemony's forces. They're responding, Zarok reported, their patterns pulsing with excitement. Multiple ships are reporting crew rebellions. The enslaved species and their forces, they're rising up. Sarah nodded grimly. This had been the riskiest part of the plan, but also the most crucial. The hegemony's fleet wasn't just made up of their own people. They forced conquered species to serve as crew, maintaining control through fear and advanced surveillance systems. Systems that were now offline. All ships, execute attack pattern Prometheus, Sarah commanded. Named after the mythological figure who gave fire to humanity, it was time to give power back to those who had been denied it for so long. The Earth fleet emerged from its hiding places in the outer system, not attacking the hegemony ships directly, but providing coverage for the rebellious crews. Precision strikes disabled weapons systems and engines, allowing the oppressed crew members to seize control. Commander, Lieutenant Park's voice was tight with emotion. We're receiving surrenders. Not just single ships, entire battle groups are standing down. The hegemony's carefully maintained hierarchy was crumbling. Without their quantum communications, without their surveillance systems, without their ability to maintain iron control over their subjugated crews, their mighty fleet was tearing itself apart from within. But Sarah knew the real test was yet to come. Multiple signatures detecting dropping out of FTL. Tactical announced. It's the second wave. They're here. The main hegemony attack force, meant to strike Earth while its defenders were distracted at Proxima, had arrived. But they weren't finding a vulnerable planet ripe for conquest. They found humanity ready. Execute Operation Legacy, Sarah ordered, her voice carrying across all Earth frequencies. Throughout the solar system, hundreds of weapons platforms that had been dormant for decades came to life. Not the advanced systems that hegemony had disabled, but older weapons, railguns, missile batteries, nuclear warheads, technology the hegemony considered primitive and beneath their notice. Technology they had no defense against. The space around Earth erupted in fury as centuries of human preparation for worst-case scenarios was unleashed. The hegemony fleet, already struggling with their compromised communications, found themselves caught in a carefully planned killing field. Multiple direct hits, Tactical reported. Their shields aren't designed to handle kinetic impacts of this magnitude. Sarah watched as humanity's primitive weapons tore through the hegemony's advanced defenses. But even now, in the midst of victory, she felt no joy, only determination. Send the signal, she ordered quietly. Throughout known space, on thousands of worlds under hegemony control, hidden quantum transmitters activated. They carried a simple message, broadcast in every known language. To all species suffering under hegemony rule, Earth stands with you. The time has come. Rise up. Attached to the message was proof of the hegemony's defeat at Earth, along with technical specifications for defeating their control systems. Specifications provided by the very species they had tried to suppress. Commander, Zorak's patterns were shifting through colors Sarah had never seen before. We're receiving responses. Thousands of them. The colonies, they're rising up everywhere. But hegemony's careful web of control, maintained through fear and technological superiority, was unraveling. Without their quantum networks, without their ability to coordinate responses across that empire, they couldn't suppress simultaneous uprisings on thousands of worlds. Sarah turned to Admiral Harrison's hologram. "Signal Earth Command. Tell them it's time for Phase 3. The Admiral nodded gravely. Phase 3 was the riskiest part of the plan, but also the most important. It wasn't enough to defeat the hegemony. They had to ensure nothing like them could ever rise again. "Attention all vessels," Sarah broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of Earth. To those who have surrendered, you will be treated with dignity. To those still fighting, look around you. Your empire was built on lies and fear. But today, we offer something more powerful: truth and hope." She paused, watching as more hegemony ships powered down their weapons. "Earth is extending an invitation to all species, whether former slaves or former masters. Join us in building something new. Not an empire, not a hierarchy, but an alliance. One where every species is free to develop in their own way, where diversity is celebrated rather than suppressed, where we face the challenges of the galaxy together." The responses began flooding in immediately, not just from the ships in the battle, but from worlds across known space. Species that had been enemies for centuries found themselves united in a common cause: freedom. The Battle of Seoul, as it would come to be known, marked not just a military victory, but the birth of something new. The Galactic Alliance of Free Species was born in those moments, as former enemies became allies and ancient wrongs began to be righted. Hours later, standing in the Horizon's observation lounge, Sarah watched Earth rotate slowly below. Zorak joined her, their patterns now showing colors that seemed to express both joy and contemplation. "What happens now?" the alien asked softly. Sarah smiled, her first genuine smile in what felt like years. "Now comes the hard part. Building something new is always harder than tearing something down. But that's another thing about humans, we're pretty good at building things." "Together," Zorak added, their patterns brightening. "Together," Sarah agreed, watching as ships from a dozen species moved in formation around Earth, no longer enemies but allies. After all, that's what humanity does best. We don't just overcome challenges, we bring people together to build something better. The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if reflecting the hope that now spread across the galaxy. It wasn't the end of conflict or of challenges, but it was the end of tyranny and the beginning of something new. Something worth fighting for. Something worth building together.